All right, LabCoat Agents, we've got Michelle Ray with us from Orlando, Florida. Thanks for adding that at the end of your name there, Orlando, Florida. That way I didn't screw it up. And thanks for putting this together, Dan. I appreciate it. And today we're going to try something different. I don't think we've ever talked about homeschooling and a real estate agent. And we're always trying to bring different topics onto LabCoats. And I thought, why not this one? Not only was Michelle super excited to share about homeschooling and how she does it in combination with her real estate business, but I also wanted to talk about my experience with homeschooling because I homeschooled our kids and I did a terrible job. So we'll get to that later. But Michelle, please tell our audience who you are, what areas you cover, and how long you've been an agent.
All right. So my name is Michelle Ray. I am a fairly new agent. I was hired by the Giant Group, which is primarily in Augusta, Georgia. We have a full team in Augusta. I was hired by them to start an expansion team in Orlando a little less than a year ago. So I'm within my first year, absolutely loving it. But I was a homeschool mom before then, working out of the home in healthcare. So I was gone like 10 hours a day when I would go to work. I had a 2-hour commute for work and then 8 hours in the office. And I thought, I've got to make a change or I'm not going to be able to manage this. I'm just not able to be present with my family. And working and homeschooling, I couldn't do that. So I made the jump to real estate, and it has really been the catalyst as to why I'm able to be a better homeschool mom, because I finally have the ability to time block and make my family and my child a priority for her education. So I made that jump a little less than a year ago and have been loving it ever since. And it has made it so much easier for me to be able to homeschool. And I just wanted to encourage other people who have been thinking about it and consider it.
I find it kind of a difficult thing to do homeschool. And you tell me how I can make it simpler or how people listening in can make it simpler, because I'm thinking as an independent contractor who relies heavily on a schedule, right, as realtors, real estate agents, and we all of a sudden have the morning portion of it or the afternoon or wherever you decide to homeschool, that portion of it completely gone because we're having to sit with our child or children to homeschool them. How many hours does that take? And because it's a commitment and your business is a commitment to, how many hours does it take and how do you structure that? Because I failed at it.
Okay, so everything is going to look different depending on how many kids you have and the ages that you have. Luckily, there's a huge amount of resources for homeschool parents. In my particular situation, I have a 12-year-old. So we have really structured her homeschooling to be student-led. That meant really researching my curriculum choices, really bringing her into those choices and saying, what do you want to do? What is going to capture your interest? What are you going to be able to focus on? And letting her have some ownership in those choices and giving her that credit. Because I think sometimes we don't give our kids enough credit. They can do a lot more than we sometimes give them credit for. So all the curriculum that I've chosen for my 12-year-old is student-led. I don't sit down and teach anything. We have a couple different things that we do with her curriculum. She's very diverse with the way that it's presented. She has 2 classes that she does at like a non-traditional hybrid homeschool program where she goes once a week, gets a lesson, and then she has a week's worth of work that she has to do from that one lesson. So she does 2 of her classes that way. She does 1 class online. And then I developed 2 of her classes, her history and her geography. And that was just buying some self-led curriculum and coming up with basically a lesson plan around that, which took me some time over the summer. But I probably put no more than 5 or 6 hours tops on putting those together. And on a day-to-day basis, I probably only have to invest about an hour into her schooling because she really only schools about 4.5 hours a day.
Okay, so you put in, did you say 1 hour a day? Is that what you said?
If that.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming it also matters how old the child is, because when I did my homeschooling,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter was 7
Mm-hmm.
and my son was, I guess he was just preschool, so that didn't count. But uh, I did okay, but I felt like I had to be the teacher to show her because she couldn't really
Yeah.
do more of independent study.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I failed at it, because I was like, oh, okay, I've got to do that. My wife did a great job, but I sucked at it, and I give her the credit. But there are programs out there that I learned after with the homeschooling that are almost like you're taking them to a real school with the program that I chose out here. Whereas you do a lot of the homeschooling, but you can also drop them off at this location where other parents that are scientists, doctors, coders, engineers,
And
they're
co-ops.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're teaching these classes, and the classes are like 4 or 5 students,
Yeah.
and they're learning from PhDs or
Mm-hmm.
amazing people. So I thought that was cool, but it was different, and I just couldn't. My schedule didn't work for it because obviously it wasn't a priority, right? Obviously, I know that, but you're making it work. So tell me what your schedule looks like and how it fits into the real estate world that you've got now, because you're a new real estate agent, right?
Yeah. So I'm working to get this Orlando markets, rolling for us. I work at least 40 or 50 hours a week. I do anywhere from 3 to 5 open houses a week, which is a big source of lead gen for us. I have a spot in the office. I'm actually in the office right now. So I'm out of my home. What I've done is I've created a Google Drive spreadsheet where she's able to go on, and if she has a question about an assignment for that day, she can go on and look on there, and I can see what she's putting in there at the same time. So it gives us a way to be connected that way. I try to at least see her in the morning before I go, unless I have floor time. I try to be at the home in the morning for about half an hour and just make sure she's got everything she needs to get started. And then I come into the office. I try to get home sometime shortly after lunch, like 1 or 2 o'clock, sometimes 3 o'clock, unless I have appointments in the afternoon. If I do have appointments in the afternoon, sometimes I'll work a little bit from home that morning because I know I'm going to be gone in the afternoon. So it really just takes, no day is the same, which is the same for every real estate agent, I think, whether you're homeschooling or not. No day is the same. I just have to look at each day as it sits and go, where are my appointments? When am I going to be out of the house? And how can I still be there for her for, a time frame so that she knows that I'm just present if she needs something, and still be able to meet all of my work expectations.
Got it. What do you do with your child the rest of the day if they aren't the age to like if they are not 12, 13, 14, right? What do you do with the child then for the rest of the day if they're done in like 3 hours or 4 hours?
So my daughter does a lot of extra stuff. So she's involved in her youth group. She's involved in a swim team that practices multiple times a week. She knows she has a certain amount of screen time, a certain amount of TV time, and she has to get a certain amount of work done every day before she can do any of the extra stuff. So it's more or less just teaching her to plan out her day. But there is a lot more free time when you're doing homeschool, because if you were to sit and track your kids in a public school or a private school situation that's more traditional, you may be gone and at that location for 7 hours, but the average amount of work time that they're actually in a classroom doing work is really closer to like 4.5 hours. So it's no different when they're at home. We're finding things to do like reading, or she has art stuff she can do, filling times with that other things, other than just when you're in public school, you're filling your time with walking from class to class, or waiting for classes to start in the morning, or waiting to get picked up in the afternoon, that kind of thing. Your time is filled, that dead time is there either way.
Do you what made you choose homeschooling versus sending your child to private school or just public school?
We had, without going into too much, we had some issues with the public school system. There was just some big differences we couldn't get past. Some situations where they weren't willing to show me curriculum and that kind of thing, which didn't open a huge trust door for me. So eventually we just kind of had the straw that broke the camel's back, and we're just done with public school. We did try private school for a year, but for us it was just really expensive, kind of for what we were getting. So we just decided there's enough resources and enough possibilities for us that we were going to do the homeschool route.
That's awesome. All right. So take me through that process of finding a curriculum that you like, that then you went with, because I know there are different companies out there, or I guess public. How does that work? Because I don't even know. My wife did everything. I was like, this is good. I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. You're like, where do I sign?
Where do I sign?
Yeah. So, yeah. So there's an infinite amount of curriculum. There's a convention that's here in Orlando every year. The FPEA puts on, that the first year that I was homeschooling, I went to that convention and my mind was just blown. It was an area as big as the general session area at Mega Camp, and completely filled with vendors for curriculum.
Wow.
And I was just, at one point I remember just going over to the wall and just sitting down going, this is too much. I can't even take it. And I just sat there for like 20 minutes. The first year that I did it, I was overwhelmed with the idea of having to really do anything with creating or following curriculum. And of course I was worried that I would not be an adequate teacher for her, or I would fail her in some way. Or that would be something that would happen to be my fault. So I went with a very self-directed online curriculum, all from one company. It was through Alpha Omega, and it was a program called Monarch, and she basically would go online and all of her lessons were there. And it's done a lot like the Florida virtual or the public school virtual programs, only it's a private school curriculum. It was a Christian-based private school curriculum. So she did that for the first year, and she did well with it. She, was successful with it. She did really great on her. I gave her an SAT at the end of the year. She had progressed. Everything was doing well. But this year we just wanted to mix it up. So now we have 2 classes in the hybrid school. We've got 1 class online. We've got 2 that I kind of created. We're doing a Bible curriculum as well on top of that. So we just kind of have a hodgepodge of stuff. And the cool thing is, in homeschool, you can do that. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true. So it doesn't seem like it really is a challenge for you to be able to fit your work schedule with homeschooling.
No.
All right.
I think people overthink how much effort it has to take.
And how much help do you get from outside of you having to read or prepare the material versus the actual company that's sending you the material? Do they get any help from them or no?
I know they have customer service, but I've never had to use it.
Okay.
Here's a number. Yeah, no, it's really well done. Like, it comes with, here's your instructions. Here's what you do. Here's day 1. Here's day 2. Here's day 3. Mom and dad, this is how you grade it. Like, it's really, when they're making these curriculums, they know that they're not making them for a person with a bachelor's in education. They know that they're not making them for any one specific type. They're making it for the masses to be able to provide a quality education to their kids without having to use the public school system or pay for private school. All of these companies develop this stuff knowing that you're looking for options and choices, and they make it about as easy as they can for you.
Okay, I have a few questions from the audience. So Norma Bonilla is asking, how does a child get monitored if no one is home? If the child needs help with a particular question. How do you manage that?
If she gets stuck on something, she calls me.
That was easy.
Yeah, in my particular situation, and I've spoken in preparation for this webinar, I've spoken to many different moms who work outside the home, but maybe don't have the exact situation I have. In my particular situation, my in-laws help me. You know, they're there and they're present. Lots of families that I talk to have family that help them. And I know that's not something everybody has available. I know one family that uses what's called an au pair over in Europe. I think they're called governess. Basically, it's like a foreign exchange program where you hire somebody to be in your home and help you get through that. Now that's kind of an expensive route, but it's cheaper than private school. There's also people who do opposite schedules as far as the two parents and their work schedules. They'll do opposite schedules. There's also families that do homeschool swapping, you know, where you can't homeschool somebody else's child, but homeschool parents can be like, hey, I work on this day and this day. I'll watch your kids and just make sure they get their work done. If on this day and this day, you watch my kids and I'll make sure they get their work done. So there's homeschool swapping that happens a lot. For my daughter, I don't do math. It is not a friend of mine. So I told my daughter, listen, you've got 7th grade math now. I know I should know all this stuff, but I'm not trying to relearn this. I already graduated once. I'm done with that. So she has 2 people that she has a phone number for. And if she gets stuck on math, she has to call one of them. And I basically pay a high schooler to take phone calls to help her through her math. So you just have to think outside the box. There's no pretty package where it shows up and goes, this is how homeschool works. You've got to look at your problem and find all the options you have to get past it.
I love that. All right. You're getting some questions here. First, Tammy says, yes, we use Monarch too. Yay. And Patricia Reese Villaverde is asking, do you have to get a nanny if your child is too young to stay home after lessons, if you have showings or their homeschool co-ops to drop them off? How does that work? You entered part of it. You have family that helps you, or the other.
If you can find drop off daycares or different co-ops in your area. Every area is different. Some communities have really, really strong homeschooling networks and others not as organized. And kind of the cool thing about this is every community that has organized homeschooling programs were started by just parents who homeschool and there was a need and they met it. So if there's not programs in your neighborhood, don't be afraid to find a couple other homeschoolers and start developing those programs.
Perfect. I agree with you on that. The one that started here where I live out in the area, there wasn't much out here, and one insurance guy decided to take it all the way and make it kind of big, and a lot of people belong to it now, which is really nice. There's a great question also that Patricia has. First, how long have you been doing this?
Homeschooling?
Yeah.
Second year.
Second year. All right. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Then what have been the biggest challenges that you've encountered?
Her math homework.
Math. All right. So
that's the hardest thing.
Got it. That makes sense, because I felt the same way.
Yeah. And really that's why last year that was an issue. She would come to me with questions and I'd be like, let's YouTube it. I don't remember. I haven't done this in 20 years. We're going to say 20 years, really more like 25 or 30.
Did you find that you relied on YouTube and what is it, Khan Academy a lot more?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how on earth I graduated high school without Google, because I haven't. You know what I kept
on telling myself? I was like, I don't remember this math in elementary. What the hell is this?
Right. Well, I remember I hated fractions, and that's what it was all last year. And I was like, I'm out. Like, go ask your stepdad. I have no idea.
Yeah, but Khan Academy really helped out for me. It was just like a refresher course in algebra and geometry when I was teaching it. I was like, whoa. So Jeremy says we're also part of a weekly homeschool co-op group. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to support and supplement and grow. So
Yes,
that's
co-ops are wonderful. And for those that don't know what co-ops are, I mean, all of them are run a little bit different, but essentially it's where you pull from the expertise of parents in the group. So I like woodworking. I do wood burning and carving and stuff. I love woodworking. So outside of real estate, something I could contribute to a co-op is I will agree to teach the students how to do a woodworking project. Somebody else may, when my husband did homeschooling with his kids years ago, he taught a survival class. He was, very outdoorsy. He knew everything about surviving in the wilderness, so he taught a survival class. There's different strong suits that you'll find from the parents and the individuals in the homeschool community, and you basically pull from those and you say, hey, can you do a lesson on this? Can you do a lesson on this? And you get to learn life so much better that way than just sitting in a classroom reading from a textbook.
I agree with you. A couple more questions, and then I'll see what I missed. How about when your child is ready to go to college? What do you do then? How's the process?
She can still do, what's it called, dual enrollment as a homeschool student. She can still do dual enrollment. So when she has enough credits through her homeschool program, she can start taking college credits while she's still technically in high school. And then you basically, you just turn in your transcripts. As a homeschool student, you still have a transcript, you still get a diploma. It just depends on what umbrella or corporation you're under. You can be an unschooler, you can do, which is essentially an umbrella of sorts. You can be under a private school, you can be under the public school. Technically, right now, I'm under the public school. I don't get any support or classroom time or activities or anything from the public school, but I just submit to them every year that we finished our year and she did well. And that's about it. So at the end of the year, or at the end of your high school, you have a transcript and a diploma just like everybody else.
All right. I love that. And by the way, I love homeschooling, even though both my kids go to public school here. But I've thought about bringing them back in. It's like,
do it, Tristan, do it.
I had the same challenge you did because I travel so much. So every time I go and speak, wherever it is, I bring both my kids.
Right.
And I say, screw you, school. And then the school sends me a letter and says, hey, your kids aren't supposed to be absent so much. And I'm like, have you seen their grades? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm like, yeah, well, you guys suck. And that's where I'm at.
Listen, my personal feeling on that is you are the parent. Who better to teach them about the world than you? And your kids have this awesome opportunity to see the country like no other kids do. I mean, I guess there's some kids that travel with their parents, but I don't have the ability to drag my kid all over the country. And how many cool experiences do they get to have?
True. Yeah, I agree. All right. So anything I missed that you wanted to talk about, that you wanted to explain about homeschooling, real estate, anything?
Just encouraging those that have been thinking about it, like yourself, that it's really not as difficult as you may think. I don't sit down and spend hours trying to teach my child. And like I said before, a lot of times we don't give our kids enough credit. I've heard so many parents say, well, my kid could never sit there and do their work. Well, they will if they know that's the only, that like when I sat down to try and talk to my daughter about doing homeschool, I said, listen, if you want to go to traditional school, you're going to go and you're going to spend 7 hours doing what you can finish in 3 hours at home. Which would you rather do? And she's like, 3 hours at home. I get to sleep in. I can wear my pajamas all day. Done. So she was sold. So I feel like sometimes
the pajamas did it.
The pajamas pushed it over the edge. I feel like when your kids have some ownership in their decisions and their choices, you let them help pick their curriculum, you let them help choose what they're gonna learn that year, which you have the ability to do in homeschool, because really, truly, you need to get the basics in, your math, your science, your English, you gotta get that stuff in, but then you let them have some ownership in their choices, and it's a lot easier to get them motivated to do those things when they have ownership in that.
Sounds like real estate.
Yes. It is.
I love
And
it.
my daughter already said, when I'm 16, can I be your assistant? I was like,
That's awesome.
yes, you can. You're going to have to do your work still, but yes, you can.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
And it's a lot easier for a homeschooling high schooler to get a job because you can do your school whenever you want.
That's awesome.
Every other teenager in town is working from 4 to 9, and they're all vying for the same normally kind of crappy jobs that you can work from 4 to 9. But when you're homeschooling as a high schooler, you have so much more flexibility. It's as long as you're getting your work done, you're golden, you're done.
I agree. Well, I think the biggest challenge here to wrap it up, the biggest challenge that I hear from agents that want to go this route was, well, what happens after I'm done or they're done teaching, right? Or learning or their homework? Do I have to take care of them still because I have to go out and show property or do that? But you gave some great solutions here. And I think you helped people understand it a little bit better, which was great. I still think the kids that are a little younger, like 5, 6, 7, 8, it can be a little bit more of a challenge on what to do and keep them entertained and part of a bigger program. But there are definitely solutions out there. So
Yeah.
that's really good. I appreciate that.
Say one thing, just to be cautious, make sure you look at your state laws. You want to make sure that you're checking into, I know like in West Virginia, it's a lot harder to homeschool than it is in Florida. Every state has different rules and regulations. Some states, it's harder to get back into public school if you changed your mind once you've gone into homeschool. Some states make it difficult. So anybody's welcome to reach out to me. You can private message me on Facebook. I'd be happy to connect you with whatever resources I have. Or if you just want to ask about, what it really, if you have a specific issue, you can just reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk to people.
Michelle, what's your email?
It's Michelle@thegiantgroup.org.
Thegiantgroup.org. Can you tell me a little bit about the Giant Group?
Oh my goodness, wonderful. So my best friend is in Augusta, Georgia. We've known each other since high school, and she has been in real estate for several years, and she is just killing it in Georgia. And I called her and I said, I want to be you when I grow up. So she sent me a KPA. I scored really high for an expansion partner. So here I am.
I love that. All right. So I just added your link there. The Giant Group is absolutely amazing. I got to meet your team at an event that we both went to last week or the week before that. I don't remember anymore. Right. But it was great.
Yeah. And your family was lovely. We saw them in the barbecue place and they were like, hi, they remembered us.
Yeah, I know. My son told me after. Yeah. It was really good. All right, Michelle. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to follow up with you again later this year to see where you're at, to see how you've progressed. And I think the more you get into this business too, you'll be like, hey, I solved this by doing this too. So I'd love to talk to you again.
Sure. I might even drag Berlin in next time.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Tristan.
Thanks, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.